We hear a lot about injectables and Botox. Are they the same thing?
Injectables can include anything like filler, PRP, Botox, Dysport. Botox itself is just a brand name.
What is one of the most overhyped treatments?
There's this one treatment that's called salmon sperm treatment.
People say that med spas are more about making money than it's about safety.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. That's something that's extremely scary because we're putting those things into our bodies and into our clients' bodies, and they're trusting us as medical practitioners.
So UK is one of the places that it's unregulated. Do you think it's safe that a lot of general public use injectables by themselves at home?
I think that that is the scariest thing. What's even more scary is that right now there's a trend of DIY injections. So there is actually a lot of videos of people injecting themselves and teaching people online.
Once you start Botox, you must continue to keep doing it forever.
Yeah, so this
Hi, I'm Manish Kapoor tuning in from Canada, and I'm really glad you're here. This is where we sit down with some amazing minds, leaders, creators, and change makers to talk about the things that matter. Every episode is a chance to learn something new, get inspired, or just hear a fresh take. So let's get into it.
In today's episode, I'm joined by Nurse Reeya from Plump It Up, a trusted name in aesthetics. We'll be diving into the world of Botox and injectables, what they really are, how they are used, the after effects, and some of the biggest myths surrounding them. Whether you've been curious about trying it for yourself or just want to separate fact from fiction, this conversation will give you a clear and honest look into the beauty and science behind the injectables. So let's get into it. All right, Reeya, thank you so much for being here and doing this with us.
Thank
we'll
you so
start, we'll start with some fun questions, just trying to know a little bit about you, and then we'll get down to the main topic. So Reeya, tell me, what's your favorite dessert?
My favorite dessert is the Dairy Queen ice cream blizzard cake. It has to have Oreo in it, and I will be obsessed.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure Dairy Queen is your favorite destination to go as
Absolutely.
well. Okay, perfect. Now, if there's one skincare product that you can use for the rest of your life, what would it be?
If anyone doesn't give this answer, don't trust them. The real answer is always sunscreen.
Yeah?
Yes, definitely.
Perfect. And who's your dream celebrity client?
My dream celebrity client in my heart is Drake, because as a Toronto girl, you have to love Drake. But realistically, I would love to do someone who's a big celebrity who's really endorsing a lot of skincare products or skincare treatments, which would be Kim Kardashian or Kris Jenner. I think it would be really awesome to treat someone like that just because they've experienced so much, and so I could learn a lot from what they've done in all the places around the world.
Perfect. Okay, so now we'll get down to the topic on hand. You were previously a nurse and now you're into aesthetics. How did this transition happen?
Yeah, I think this is always the most common question that I get, even amongst my clients. And so with being a nurse injector, you do obviously have to be a nurse as well. So to do Botox and filler injections, you do need to be a person who's a medical practitioner. But the transition from doing conventional nursing into aesthetics, it was kind of something that I was not planning on doing, but it became more of just the way that my life progressed. While I was doing nursing school, I had a friend who had suggested that nurses did Botox and filler, and so I thought that that would just be something I would try. And so as I was doing my pediatric nursing, which is what I did after school, I decided to do some training courses, and as I was doing my training, I realized that I was really good at what I was learning, which was the aesthetics. And I also loved the combination of business, science, and health. It was a great kind of trifecta to target everything that I appreciated in the world, but also a way to kind of connect on a customer basis while giving people that confidence that they may not be able to have every day.
So your medical background did help you get into this industry, right?
Yeah, not only did it help, but it was a requirement, right? So if you're an injector who's especially a nurse injector, like you are either a registered nurse or a registered practical nurse, so an RN or an RPN. And then as well, you can be a nurse practitioner or a doctor. So to inject in Canada, you have to be a licensed professional. So you would have to be some sort of healthcare professional. But ultimately, you can do things outside of nursing that would be kind of in the same industry. So things like an esthetician or a medical esthetician even.
Okay, perfect. So what is your clinic called and what kind of services do you guys offer?
Yeah, so my clinic is called Plump It Up Medical Spa. And so what we offer is kind of a really large wealth of different services. So we don't cater to just one sort of population. All of our clients are a mix of everything. So we'll have males, females, everything in between, and then as well different age categories. So we don't just try to do the things that are trendy for like the millennials or Gen Zs. We offer Botox, fillers, PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma, and PRF, which is platelet-rich fibrin, which are some really beautiful natural stimulating injections. We also do things like customized facials, laser hair removal. We do hair restoration. So for noticing over time that our hair is thinning or we're experiencing some balding, whether that's related to a health issue or just stressors. We even target things on the body, so we do body contouring, we do IV vitamin drips, which are incredible for if you're recovering from surgery or from an illness, and also really great for athletes as well too. So we do a lot of different services. We don't just try to focus on one little niche.
Okay, so I think my hair is thinning, like you said. So what kind of treatment could you offer me?
Yeah, absolutely. So with hair restoration, the best treatment, and it's kind of the gold standard, is doing PRP with microneedling. So platelet-rich plasma is where we take a vial of blood and we spin it in a centrifuge, and it separates out the red blood cells from the platelets. And so that platelets and the plasma are really concentrated fluid, and it's what we call liquid gold. And so we inject that back into the hair, and what it's doing is it's stimulating dormant follicles. So over time, some of our hair follicles become a little bit sleepy, or they're not as energized as they normally are, and so they don't tend to come through the surface of our scalp anymore. And so that stimulation of not only the microneedling but also the PRP is what helps generate a really healthy follicle, and so you're more likely to have thicker, more healthier hair.
So is this like a surgical procedure?
No, so this is what you would do either before or after surgery, or even as an alternative to surgery, depending on where you're at in your hair stage. With the microneedling, what it is it's like a pen, and on the pen there's these tiny, tiny little needles, and what they do is they either move in a circular motion or up and down, and what that's doing is creating little tiny punctures into the scalp. So you don't really feel too much of it, it's more of a scratching sensation. And then what we're doing with the PRP is we're either injecting that into the scalp or allowing it to be on the surface and being penetrated into those punctures we've created. So this is something with very, very minimal downtime. You can go about your day right after the treatment, even before you can carry on. If you're doing a hair transplant, which is a surgical option, you would actually need to do PRP microneedling following that appointment regardless. So a lot of surgical offices will either offer that or refer out for you to do the PRP to maintain those follicles, so you're not just doing the whole surgery for no reason.
So if I don't do hair transplant, can I still just do PRP?
Yes, you can, but it does depend on what your expectation of results is. So if you're looking at someone who's had balding, for 5+ years and they have kind of that shinier scalp,
Yeah.
PRP microneedling is probably not the best option for them. It's unlikely that they'll get a good result with as many treatments as they do. But if you're kind of at those earlier stages or you still have some patchiness in your hair, that's a great time to do PRP microneedling.
Okay, and so is it safe?
Yes. So the best thing about PRP, kind of wherever you're using it or for whatever reason you're using it for, PRP is completely natural because it's being taken from your own blood and nothing is being added to it. So really the side effects or the possibility of adverse reaction is very limited. Really what you're looking at is a risk of infection because we're piercing through the skin. But a risk of infection is kind of existent no matter what treatment you're doing, because just imagine you get a paper cut or you fall on the road. Any sort of compromise to your skin barrier allows there to be a risk of infection.
And How long is one session and what's the cost like?
Yeah, so the cost will range, of course, depending on how many sessions you're doing, what areas you're treating. What I like to say is all of our services at a medical spa tend to be more of a luxury service because we're not necessarily treating specific health problems, right? So we're catering more to the want rather than the need. Of course, there's areas where we treat things and they benefit where the need would be. So even, with hair loss, if there's hair loss because of medications or differences in hormones, that's a great option.
Yeah.
And so a price tag for that would be upwards of $500 usually.
Okay, per session.
Treatment. Exactly.
Okay. And then how long does it take per session?
So each session takes about 30 to 45 minutes depending on the client, depending on the area we're treating. But like I said, it's a really minimal downtime treatment unless you're doing your face, which is where you'll be a bit red for a couple days.
Okay. And do you do it yourself or do you have someone who's authorized who can do this?
Yes. So like I mentioned earlier, you do have to be a nurse. And so I as the owner of the clinic, I do the majority of the injectable treatments. Okay. I do have another nurse, Nurse Yana, who works with us as well too. So she'll do the same treatments as well.
Perfect. Okay. I did digress and started asking questions about myself. Okay. Now, we hear a lot about injectables and Botox. Are they the same thing? If not, what is the difference?
So injectables is more of like an overarching term for the category of what the services are. So injectables can include anything like filler, PRP, Botox, Dysport. Botox itself is just a brand name. So the same way we look at like Tylenol and Advil.
I see.
So Tylenol is really acetaminophen, that kind of thing. So Botox is botulinum toxin, and what that is a muscle relaxer. Dysport is the brand that we use all the time at our clinic, and that's just the brand of botulinum toxin. There's many others out there. I just choose to use Dysport because I find it has more benefits compared to others, but ultimately they're all very much the same.
Okay, I see. Has the public perception of injectables changed over the years?
Yes, I think that this has definitely shifted into a more healthier relationship that the public has with injectables or even aesthetics in general. Even something as simple as this, right? Like having someone as a nurse injector on a podcast where you're asking questions more about knowledge rather than judgment, I think shows a big shift in what the stigma is around injectables. Earlier on, like when celebrities were on television or in movies, we tend to kind of gravitate towards finding out exactly what they did because of how bad they looked or how obvious their results were. Now we've shifted into this realm where people who've gotten injectables or good injectables, it's usually undetectable. You can't necessarily tell that someone has had Botox or that they've had PRP hair restoration. You're not going to know that that's what's happened. And so I think the general public has shifted into a much more healthier relationship. It's not maybe where it should be particularly, but it is definitely better than it was in the past.
Okay, perfect. Because I think, what's the youngest you've seen people who are getting into something like this?
Yeah, I think this goes into kind of a more scarier territory for sure when we're talking about the ages that have the influence of wanting treatments. For us at the clinic, we only treat clients who are 19 years old and above, and that's a personal rule that I've had since I've started the business. Okay. I personally don't feel comfortable injecting anyone under that age. I don't feel like it's a educated decision that they're making. It's more of an influenced or peer pressured decision. However, have I had people much younger inquire? Absolutely. In things where it's like laser hair removal or, a chemical peel or a facial for acne, we have no problem treating clients that are younger because, of course, that can really affect their confidence as they're growing older or if their peers have done those treatments or they're able to shave their legs before other clients can. That's where we feel a bit more comfortable. But I do feel like when they're, 15, 16 years old asking about lip filler, that's completely unnecessary.
And why do you think, like you said, it's peer pressure? Is that one of the major reasons they consider getting this done?
Yeah, I think it's peer pressure, but also pressure on themselves because of a lot of what social media kind of perpetuates on a day-to-day basis. It's difficult. I feel like there's this trend of like brain rot on TikToks. That's what is out there right now. And
what is that?
That is where you're kind of falling into this like loophole or this deep dive into just scrolling and doom scrolling, which means you're just stuck on, an app for hours and hours on end. At that point, like you're getting so much at once and so many tiny short clips of so many different things and the ways people are looking, it definitely makes you not create a perception of what you want to look like with your own ideation. So you're kind of getting influenced by everyone else, but then also feeling like it's your decision because you're sitting there and scrolling. And so I think that there's this difficult kind of navigating that whole platform is difficult for younger kids for sure.
Okay. What is one of the most overhyped treatments that you know?
Right now, I would say there's this one treatment that's called salmon sperm treatment.
Okay.
So salmon sperm facial, for me, I feel is a bit overhyped. I don't think it's a treatment that people shouldn't get done.
What did you say? It's
salmon sperm, like you literally heard me correctly.
Wow.
So what that is you're essentially supposed to be taking stem cells or exosomes from a salmon, and what that's supposed to do is generate collagen and elastin under the skin. So the purpose of this treatment is to promote skin tightening, to promote a better glow or refreshed appearance. Will I say it's been studied enough? No, absolutely not. It's something that has come out only recently in the North American countries, and we kind of latched on.
Is it relating to the Korean look or something like that?
Yeah, it kind of. So in South Korea, which I traveled to last summer to do a bit of training, we learned a lot about these alternative treatments that are maybe not approved here in the Canada or States.
Okay.
And so with the salmon sperm facial, the reason why it became so popular is because Kim Kardashian decided to post that she had done it.
I see.
So it's not a bad thing. Like, I think that that family has a great influence on this industry, but I do feel like we tend to latch onto something that someone has posted without there being enough scientific research or clinical studies. And it's really important to not be just doing any sort of treatment that you find, because clinical studies that are not supported by companies, so they're not financed by companies, are very hard to find for these types of trendier treatments. Usually the company that is producing this salmon sperm injectable is the one that's funding those studies that are not really the most unbiased.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Any treatments that you offer in your clinic for which you've faced any backlash?
I don't necessarily think so. I think that there's backlash across the entirety of what we offer. Like I said about the stigma, right? Like, people do have a healthier relationship with what we offer now, but there's still a lot of people who don't really understand things about injectables. And so there's backlash just about everything, right? Like, oh, lip filler, your lips are going to look super fake or they're going to look huge. That doesn't need to be the case. And what I'm very proud of with my clinic, with Plump It Up, is that I've always really maintained that natural look, and that's what we offer. And oftentimes I tend to turn away clients who are looking for the aesthetic that I don't align with. And so I'm lucky to not have a lot of backlash, which is great. However, I find that the best way to rebuttal against that is just education.
Perfect. This episode is sponsored by Kapoor Law Firm, your trusted real estate law firm serving all of Ontario. Whether you're buying, selling, or refinancing a home or business, their expert team can guide you through every step. And here's a bonus for our listeners. Subscribers to this show can receive a one-time coupon for their upcoming closing. Visit thekapoorpodcast.com to claim yours. A lot of people say that these med spas are more about making money than it's about safety. What do you have to say on that?
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. And I think that might be a very controversial take from someone who owns a medical spa.
Fair enough.
I do find that there are a lot of nurse injectors within Toronto, just even within the GTA, who are very true to the values of being good practitioners and being safe. And I really respect that. However, there are a lot of chains and franchise clinics and ones where they'll offer extremely cheap rates just to get clients in the door. And I will say I don't necessarily trust that all the time, because I've gotten a lot of clients who've come from those places with bad results or undesired results. So they're finding that things are not as concentrated as they should be. The practitioner has a lot of behind the scenes things that they do before we actually step into the room with our clients and do the injection itself.
Okay.
And so I think that there's some places that don't necessarily prioritize the safety and really are focused on the financial aspect of it. And that's something that's extremely scary, because we're putting those things into our bodies and into our clients' bodies, and they're trusting us as medical practitioners. It's really unfair. So I do think that is sort of the trend with franchise clinics. Do I think it's all of them? No, of course not. Ultimately, you know, we are nurses, we are doctors, and we do have this sort of responsibility to the general public to keep them safe. And so I'd hope that most people are willing to do that. But I will say that there are some bad apples in the bunch for sure.
Interesting. Do you guys have a governing body?
Yes. So just like all regulated healthcare professionals, when you're regulated and you have a title, there's a college that overlooks us. So we have the College of Nurses of Ontario, which look over the nurses. The physicians have their own college as well too. And so to those boards, the public can report if they desire. What I have an issue with is that a lot of the franchise clinics are owned by people who are not regulated healthcare professionals. So it's a lot of times investors or business owners, and they're not necessarily doctors or nurses themselves. And so when the public or even, you know, someone like myself were to complain, there's nothing that the college can do because that ends up being something that the business bureau has to take over. Because if it's not the nurse or the doctor who's in charge, there's a lot of loopholes that they can go through to kind of continue doing unsafe practices.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How does a normal person know who is he going to if they're regulated or not? Should they do proper research?
Yeah.
How do they figure this out?
Absolutely. So the great thing about the College of Nurses is that you can actually look up nurses on their website. So it's very easy. You obviously don't have to pay for anything. You just search their name. You can see all of their history. You can even see if they've had any past issues with the college. I think the doctors, the College of Physicians of Ontario has the same thing as well too.
Nice.
So in that sense, I think it's really important for the public to do their own research on before, you know, just going into any place. I just think that there's become this unfortunate stigma about injectables that it's as simple as going to go get your nails done or get your hair done, where we're just walking into any clinic and just signing up for the best deal.
Have you had any issues at your clinic? Anything that went wrong, and what happened?
I think it would be untruthful to say that we've never had an issue. I think just with the statistic of how many people you're doing on a day-to-day basis, it's unlikely that you could have a perfect record. And if you do have a perfect record, that means that you haven't done enough clients or you're not doing enough different treatments.
Okay.
It's not to say that
What
things
could
have
go
gone
wrong?
wrong. Yeah, exactly. So things that can go wrong, like I've mentioned, there's always a risk of an infection.
Okay.
A lot of that has to do with how the client takes care of the area that we've injected once they go home. So I find very often clients like to go out right away and put makeup on. Their brushes are not clean, they're sweating, their hair is in their face right on an area that we've pierced through the skin. That's a huge risk for bacteria to enter that area. So that's not a common adverse effect, but it's something that can happen very easily.
Okay.
Other things that can go wrong or are undesired are where Botox or Dysport can end up with an asymmetry. So sometimes you can have an eyebrow that shoots up or an eyelid that goes droopy or a crooked smile. Again, if you're doing enough Botox or Dysport, you're going to run into that issue. It's just a matter of how you deal with that as the practitioner moving
How do you
forward.
deal with it?
A lot of times you have to kind of wait it out. Botox is something that you can't reverse, but it is always temporary. So it's a little bit more of just waiting. And, you know, you can also do things like use vibration on the area to stimulate the muscle a little bit more. If it's something as simple as one eyebrow, one higher than the other, we can always just lower that eyebrow by adding a couple more units.
Yeah.
So it's not like the end of the world for sure, but there have definitely been cases where you can find them on social media where people have had some longer term issues that may not have just resulted from a regular Botox injection.
Any other major cases that you've seen at your clinic or other places that you want to discuss about?
Yeah, so one thing that I definitely want to talk about is something called a vascular occlusion. So a vascular occlusion is something that can only happen when you're doing a filler treatment. So
What is vascular occlusion?
Yeah, so filler is made of hyaluronic acid, which is a sugar molecule that we naturally have in our bodies. When you have filler, it's that hyaluronic acid molecule, but it's turned into a gel substance, and so it's almost like a solid. What can happen is when we're injecting that into the face or into the body, it can actually enter a blood vessel and it can act as a clot in that blood vessel. So it can actually stop the flow of blood. Okay. That's a very serious complication. So that's what we call a vascular occlusion. So if you imagine even like if you have a stroke is caused by the lack of blood flow to an area.
Yeah.
We can almost contribute that exact same thing to doing filler. And so that's why it's so important that we have only licensed practitioners doing these treatments, because if you don't know how to act on that issue, if it were to occur in your office, you can cause someone a lot of serious damage. They can have blindness, they can have skin necrosis, which means their skin would die. They can go into a stroke, which is very scary, of course, or even something just as simple as, the blood flow is not flowing in that area. It may be fine in that moment, but after they go home and you haven't looked at it or you haven't followed up with them, over the next few days, it can progress into one of those very serious adverse events. So in that respect, I think that's why I love to educate that, injectables is a very serious profession. It's a very serious thing that the public should be taking not so lightly anymore, and not be going into just any sort of clinic to be getting these things done. You always need to make sure that your injector is having these reversal things on hand. So something called hyaluronidase, which is an enzyme that breaks down the filler. If you don't have enough of that supply in your clinic, you're not going to be able to treat someone who has that vascular occlusion at the time.
Let me just retract a little bit on this topic. What kind of injectables could lead to this? Like
Just
anything?
Just dermal filler. So filler.
And where do you use that? Like on your face or?
Yeah, so filler can be used on the face, which is mostly where we use it, but it can also be used around the body, which right now actually it's getting really popular to do dermal filler on the hips or on the bum. And so you can do dermal filler anywhere. The most common areas that you're getting it done is usually the cheeks for more contouring, the jawline for a more snatched look, chin, lip filler, under eyes, kind of everywhere across the whole face. There's some areas that are more higher risk in terms of getting a vascular occlusion. So things like injecting nose filler. Our veins and our blood vessels are really, really tiny in that area. And so even just a small amount of filler in the wrong spot can cause that occlusion to happen.
And when does the client know that he's facing some issues?
Yeah.
Immediately or?
So it's something that I think that the practitioner should be looking out for most, like as a majority. However, if the client is going home and they're not well educated in the clinic, they're not going to know what signs to look out for. So things that they should really be contacting their practitioner for: if there's increasing pain once they've gone home, if there's redness that's, really getting hot and it's throbbing and it's just not looking right. It's great when clients have had injectables in the past, so they kind of know what to expect.
Yeah.
If there's anything out of the norm, I just always tell my clients to contact me.
And then say you've done a treatment on Friday and they're not feeling well on Saturday. Are you available at that time?
Me personally, I carry my Plump It Up phone with me 24/7. And I think that that's something that, it's about work-life balance, of course, but it's also, understanding that you have this obligation to your clients to make sure that they're always safe. Like I said, with the nose filler, it is an injectable treatment that's a bit more higher risk. So I tend not to do any of those on the day before I have a day off. So I always work on Saturdays, but if I'm off, let's say on a Sunday, I'm never doing the nose filler on a Saturday.
Okay, just to make sure that nothing worse comes up.
Another thing too is I live really close to my clinic, and so if anything, I'm always available for that.
Perfect. Do you think men are warming up to these treatments more than they used to?
Yeah, definitely. I would say 100%. About 25% of our clients are actually male clients, which is amazing. And just like you, when they hear about the hair restoration, they are immediately, interested in what that treatment is. I feel it's really unfortunate that it's not even more accepted into the male community just yet. Because ultimately, as women, I find we do a lot on a day-to-day basis to upkeep our looks. We get our nails done. Some women get their lashes done. Just everything in general, right? And I feel like men don't have as much opportunity to get that confidence from external treatments. And so it does make me very happy to be able to do a lot of male clients. And, people always ask me, is it just clients who are on television or they're on a model runway or something. It's clients from all sorts of walks of life. I've had teachers, I have lawyers, I have accountants, I have big, huge CEOs of big companies that come to see us, and they do not feel any sort of way about getting any of these injectable treatments. It's what makes them feel good.
Interesting. And what's the most common treatments that they go for?
For males?
Yeah.
I would definitely say the hair PRP for hair restoration for sure. And I don't think that that's a bad thing at all. I think that men should feel as confident as they can, and hair has to do a lot with their confidence.
Yeah.
And so that's obviously why it's the most common treatment. Second most common would definitely be Botox for sure. We always get those really deep lines, especially when we're furrowing our face,
Yeah.
and when we're squinting a lot as well too. And so a lot of men like to kind of soften that look so they don't look so angry.
So I'm always been averse to Botox or injectables. So how would you convince a man like me that this is something I should consider? And do you think, like looking at me right now, do you think there's anything I should be doing at this point of time?
It's so funny because as soon as people find out that I'm a nurse injector in any context, if I'm at a party, if I'm on vacation, this is the exact question that they ask me. What would you do for me?
Yeah.
And so ultimately, my first question is always, when you're taking a photo, what is the first thing that your eyes get drawn to on your own photo? And I think that that really shows me what you feel is something you don't feel the most confident about. So I don't like to say you should do this, this, and this, and this, because that's my standard of beauty, and what your standard is may be very different. So if you're feeling like, you've asked me a few questions about your hair, that's maybe something that I would suggest for you. And it's not to say that you have hair thinning. It's just to say that if that's something that you're already feeling self-conscious about, maybe just treat it. And so you can get that result that you want for a longer period of time. We always treat clients who have thick, healthy hair.
Yeah.
And that's just to maintain that look, because we don't want it to look worse and then have to treat it, right? It's that whole healthcare prevention rather than treatment.
Perfect. So UK is one of the places I believe that, it's unregulated. Injectables are, right? So, and we've heard that a lot of general public use injectables by themselves at home. Do you think it's safe, or do you think there should be a YouTube tutorial showing how this could be done?
If this topic I could talk about for like 3 hours. Yes, in the UK, there's no regulations about filler and Botox. And I think that that is the scariest thing ever. Like, end of sentence, it's the scariest thing. And what's even more scary is that right now there's a trend of DIY injections. So there is actually a lot of videos of people injecting themselves and teaching people as tutorials, as they would with makeup tutorials online. Like I just talked about with the vascular occlusion, if you're at home, you're not a licensed practitioner, you've bought this filler straight from, wherever, you can even get it at the pharmacy, which is crazy in the UK. And now you've done the injections, you're not only filming yourself, but you're probably home alone, don't have any sterile things, like anything at all. And now you have a clot in your face and you don't have the reversal agent, nor do you even understand what's happening. Like, you could die, like ultimately you can die. And that's the worst case scenario. But everything leading up to that is also terrible, right? There's blindness, there's skin necrosis, there's a huge list of things. And I think people think they're always the hero in the situation. They're, the 1 in a million who it won't happen to, or they're the 99 out of the 100 that it won't happen to. But it's way less of that statistic, right? Like, a lot more people are having adverse reactions than we think they are. So is it safe? Absolutely not. Should people even be injecting themselves? I always say no. I think that, certain things, yes, of course, you can do your own microneedling, you could do your own Botox, but even then, like, as medical professionals, if you have someone who can do it for you, you should always be resorting to that option.
So always be safe with this.
Definitely.
Why do people do that? To save money?
Yeah, I think ultimately that's the reason. Unfortunately, I think another reason is just the influencer culture and the viral culture where, doing something so dramatic on video is going to capture an audience. And so, we develop influencers overnight. And so that probably plays a part in it as well, too.
Okay, perfect. So now an esthetician was arrested for using fake Botox from China. Have you heard about this story?
Maybe not this specific story, but I hear this story very often. It's crazy because it's not something that I'm shocked about at all. On a day-to-day basis, and I'm not exaggerating at all, on my clinic phone, we get messages every single day on Instagram, on WhatsApp from these suppliers. They're almost like spam messages or junk messages, and they're listing everything that they offer for us to buy, the prices, which are a fraction of the cost of what we pay, and that they're explicitly stating where they're coming from, whether it's Korea, China, wherever, and you don't even really know where it is coming from, but it's always some weird international number. So to say like that's something that's happened, I'm not shocked. But to say that there's people out there who are willing to take that risk for clients is extremely concerning.
So these suppliers that you use for your products, are they regulated as well?
Yes. So, of course, through Canada, we have the Drug Administration, and with the US, there's obviously the FDA. And so there's always going to be regulations with these larger companies. So as a clinic for ourselves at Plump It Up, we always use these huge companies to make sure that we're never, ending up in a situation where we didn't assume it was going to end up. So the larger companies are always going to be things like Galderma, Allergan. With filler, there are a lot of companies out there, but you just have to make sure that you're doing the research as an injector or as a practitioner to make sure that you're finding someone who's already Health Canada approved.
I see. Perfect. And what other, standards do you maintain at your clinic in regards to safety?
Yeah, so again, the vascular occlusion is always going to be the most key thing that we want to make sure of, but there's always, of course, a risk of allergic reactions as well, too. The whole staff at our clinic, whether they're a nurse or not, are trained on what to do, so it's not a matter of them injecting anything if there's a problem, but it's more so that we know how to follow the steps. So Jasmine, who's our clinic coordinator, she knows exactly what to do, although she's not a healthcare practitioner, right?
Okay.
So we always make sure that everyone's well informed. I have a really easy to read flow chart, so if something happens, we know exactly what to do. Even in a case if something happens to me, if I faint on the spot, what are they going to do, right?
Okay.
And so those are some things that we do for sure to keep safety in line. As well, as a nurse, I always have a medical director. So I have a nurse practitioner who overlooks everything that we do. She's always available on hand. She's also within the GTA as well too, so she can always come to the clinic if necessary.
Okay, perfect. Now, what I'll do is I'll ask you a few questions. It could be a myth or a fact.
Okay.
You tell us and you can explain it in as much detail as you want.
Sure.
Okay, so first one is Botox will make your face look frozen.
Yeah, absolutely a myth. I think that this is something that we've always assumed Botox is going to do. Can it make you look frozen? 100%. And I have tons of clients who ask for that result because they just like having that smooth effect.
Okay.
For people who have never done any injectables, think of frozen. They think of something that they see on TV where people are making fun of Botox, right? We think of that really exaggerated expression. It looks crazy. It doesn't look normal. Frozen really just means that we can't move our face. And ultimately, I'm frozen right now, right? Like I am emoting as I normally would, but if I try and raise my eyebrows, this is as far as they go up.
Yeah.
So that's me being frozen. But Botox can be done in any sort of adjustment of the dose to allow the result that the client is looking for. So a client can still move their face entirely even though they've gotten Botox, but it may soften that wrinkle for them. And that's usually what we try and do.
People actually want the frozen?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm frozen, so.
Yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And then once you start Botox, you must continue to keep doing it forever.
Yeah, so this is also a myth. So I always tell my clients the best thing about Botox is that if you don't like it or if it's something that you just want to do for a special event, you never have to do it again. It's not going to make you look worse in the long run if you stop doing Botox. What will happen is you'll just go right back to where you started off, and then obviously your signs of aging will continue to show. So Botox we like to talk about it as a preventative measure, but usually Botox is really just being used to soften any creases that we have. So I always refer to this analogy of if you take a piece of paper and you fold it over and over and over again, you're going to get a crease that's in there. Botox is kind of like an iron that's smoothing out that paper.
We are also proud to be sponsored by Kapoor Vastralia with locations in Mississauga, Ontario, Surrey, British Columbia, and Fremont, California. For the finest selection of ethnic Indian clothing, visit your nearest store and explore their beautiful collection. And just for our subscribers, you can get a one-time discount coupon by visiting thekapoorpodcast.com and filling out the form. Okay, so like normally, how many times a year should someone get it done?
So Botox lasts about 3 to 4 months. That's kind of the
Okay.
general rule. So a client is typically doing this treatment 3 to 4 times a year.
I see.
If they do it once a year, there's nothing wrong with doing that. If they do it once every other year, there's also nothing wrong with that. The only downside is that if they're trying to treat a problem, so if they're trying to get rid of a line and they're only doing it once every other year, they're not going to solve it with doing it that infrequently.
I see. So they ideally, it depends really on the
Exactly.
person.
It depends on the person, depends on their expectation, and it really depends on their budget and their accessibility to coming to see us.
Okay. The next one is surgical options are better than injectables?
I think this is a mix of myth and fact. It depends on what you're looking for. When a client comes up to me and they're pulling their face back, injectables are not going to give them that option. So that's where surgery will really make a difference. If someone comes in with really hooded eyelids, they're heavy, and they have a lot of loose skin, there's no amount of Botox or filler I can put in there that's going to solve that problem. If anything, Botox might actually give them a worse droopiness because the eyelid is no longer being held up anymore. Because if you think about Botox as a muscle relaxant, it's dropping the eye even further. So surgical options in that capacity are sometimes the best option. I also always tell clients if they have a lot of chin fat here, no amount of what I do is going to get rid of it until you get rid of it surgically. So I'm very open and transparent about surgical options. I think that's why our clients are so loyal to us, because they know when I'll say no. But do I think that there's some times where surgery is not needed? Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of clients who are also younger who could benefit a lot from injectables and not have to go the surgical route.
Does your clinic offer a surgical?
No, so surgical treatments would only be done by a plastic surgeon, and so they'd have to be going to a plastic surgeon.
I see.
Or should be at least.
Perfect. And then aesthetic treatments are only for women. I think we've covered this.
Yeah, I think we've obviously gone over this, but for sure it's a myth. There is not one type of person that I haven't seen at the clinic. We're very accepting of all walks of life, and so no, injectable treatments are not just for women.
Okay, now when you say that, are there any ethnicities who prefer these treatments more than the others?
I think ultimately, the injectable community is overall more of a white women-led community, and that's just because of the nature of the treatments that we do. A lot of lasers are safer on lighter skin tones, that sort of thing. A lot of clinical trials are done on that category of just white women. So being a person of color, it's been something that's a huge motivator for me to make sure that I'm including people of color in all of our posts and all of our education, and also in our client base as well too. We have so many clients who are of color, and I think that they come to us because I represent that, and so does my team. We have a diverse team as well at the clinic. And so there's certain treatments that I unfortunately can't offer to them. Even I can't offer to myself, like I said, with certain lasers. But in terms of injectables, no, everyone can get those done.
Okay, perfect. And then lid drooping from Botox is more common than most people think. So that's the question. And what is lid drooping?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to that earlier. It's definitely way more common than people think it is. It's a very common side effect that can happen with Botox. And what that means is that the eyelid up right at the top or even in the center is kind of getting a bit heavier. And so what happens is it looks a bit like this. If it's true drooping, it's called ptosis. And so what can happen is it hits the muscle that kind of helps to lift our eye normally. And so when we relax that muscle, it causes that muscle to be weaker. And so it just sits like this instead. I've even had it happen to myself. And it's something that will be temporary. It will wear off at some point. The extremity of how that will look on someone is going to depend on how much was used and how badly that muscle was hit. A lot of times what happens is clients don't follow our aftercare instructions. And one big one that I find is an issue is when they're getting other facial treatments done too close to their Botox appointment. So they've done their Botox appointment and then they go for their lashes right after, or they've done their Botox appointment, then they're going for a facial right after. That constant massaging or that taping or that laying down, any of those things can be a reason why Botox travels to a muscle that we don't intend for it to travel to and cause lid drooping. I won't say that it's not the injector's fault either. We obviously have to take some accountability as well. Maybe the client was not a good candidate for Botox in that area, and so we injected them wrongfully, and so that caused the lid drooping as well too. So there's different factors that could attribute to that result.
So I believe, I presume with whatever you've said so far is that you'll give them a to-do list of what not to do and what to do after a treatment.
Yes, so we give every single client an aftercare sheet that's printed. We also go over all of that as well when they're leaving, and then I also do it during and after the treatment. So they are very well educated at Plump It Up when they get all of that information. I'm not sure about other areas where they get their injections done, but we really make sure that they're getting all that information. And then when we send our follow-up email the next day, they're getting that same list of instructions again. So they're getting about 5 to 6 times of reminders for aftercare.
Oh, amazing. And say someone's got a lip filler done, right? How long is the aftercare?
Yeah, so we always say 2 weeks is the amount of time that you want to wait for.
That's general for everything?
General, yeah, for
Okay.
the most part. And the biggest reason is just because there's always a risk of bruising. Bruising is something that we can't really control because our face is covered in blood vessels, and so you don't really know when you're going to nick something. But a lot of clients, like I will turn away clients constantly if they're, oh, my sister's getting married next week. Don't do any treatments. You're gonna end up with something that is gonna happen, and it's just because you decided to that day that you're gonna be that 1% chance that gets the problem.
I see. Perfect. Now, preventive Botox is only for people over 40.
I think that it's a myth with a little residual fact in it, because I find that there was this trend, especially during COVID, where we talked a lot about baby Botox. Baby Botox is something where you do a little sprinkle of Botox across the whole face, and it feels less extreme than regular Botox does. I think it's a big marketing term for sure, but there is some truth in it, in that doing a little bit of Botox when you're noticing that crease is forming in your forehead or around your eyes, it's not a bad thing, and so it can prevent that line from getting deeper. I think the age category of 40 is a little bit high. I would say probably like 35, 30 to 37 is a good time to start thinking of preventative Botox. My biggest thing for clients, especially women clients or people wearing makeup, is that if you're wearing makeup and you're noticing after a few hours it's creasing into some lines around your face, that's probably a good time to start thinking about getting preventative Botox if it's something that bothers you. If it's, very, very faint, we could probably do some treatments like microneedling to stimulate some collagen. You could probably be using some retinol, definitely wearing sunscreen. That may be enough prevention until, you're at an older age to then get Botox when you feel comfortable.
Okay, can I just maybe digress a little bit? You've spoken about sunscreen a couple of times. Which is a good sunscreen? Which one should I use normally? Should I use it in the winters as well?
Yeah, so the best sunscreen, this is always what I say, the best sunscreen is the one you'll use every day. So if you have a sunscreen that you like and, it's not the one that your favorite influencer is recommending, as long as you're using it every day, it's a good sunscreen. My favorite sunscreen, though, personally, is what we carry at the clinic. It's called Color Science. And the reason why I love it so much is because it's really tinted, and so you can use it almost like foundation on your skin. And so a lot of times what happens is clients, they'll go to Sephora or Shoppers Drug Mart and get those tinted sunscreens that look like makeup with also a bit of sunscreen, or moisturizer with sunscreen in it. It's not enough SPF to give you enough protection for the day. And so with Color Science, it's 50 SPF, which is a huge amount of SPF that it's meeting that minimum for sure, but it's also giving you that coverage, and so you're not feeling like you need to slap on a bunch of makeup on top. You can go about your day. It's great for acneic skin as well too, and so it's not going to cause you breakouts or clogging your pores, and it feels super lightweight on your face. So I love Color Science. It also comes in an untinted version, which my dad wears every single day, so that he can attest to for sure, and it's great for colored skin as well too, because it's not leaving a white cast.
And you use it once in the morning before leaving?
You're supposed to use sunscreen every 2 hours. You're supposed to reapply. I think that that's unrealistic for the general population. I personally can't even reapply every 2 hours, and I work in my clinic. I have windows that are right there. What's great is Color Science actually comes with a brush-on sunscreen, and so you can actually just brush it on top, and it won't affect the way it looks. So there's a lot of companies that do things like that. And then to go back to your question about wearing sunscreen in the winter, yes, it's extremely important. Sometimes it's actually more important because when we have snow, obviously here in Canada we have tons of snow. When the sun is reflecting off the snow, that can actually hit you in the face a lot harder than you think. And a lot of clients feel like they don't want to wear sunscreen when there's rain or clouds. The UV is still coming through. The UV is still coming through your window. It's coming through the windshield of your car. UVA and UVB rays are coming through whether you're looking at the sun or not. And so it's important for you to always be wearing sunscreen.
Okay, perfect. Getting back to fact versus myth. Next one is facials and lasers give instant permanent results.
Yeah, definitely not true at all.
Okay.
You're never going to get an immediate result, and that result will stay forever. Even if you do something surgical, which is technically permanent, that result is not an immediate result. You always are going to have some level of downtime, whether it's swelling, bruising, redness, tenderness, soreness, any of those things. When it comes to facials, I think, yes, there's a level of immediate result where you're getting that skin glow, you're getting that hydration, your extractions are done, so your skin just looks a lot more refreshed. But if you're not doing that consistently, or you're not doing the at-home skincare, which is equally as important, if not more, you're not getting a permanent result for sure.
Okay. And then this one, I think we touched on this, but again, vascular occlusions can occur by injecting filler anywhere on the face or the body.
Yes, so that's definitely a fact. And something that I didn't get to elaborate on was what's really popular right now is the bum or the booty injections with dermal filler that are being done by nurses and sometimes not just doctors. When we think about a BBL, which is a surgical treatment where we take fat from the stomach and we inject it into the hip dips, it's actually the most dangerous surgical treatment you can get done. So it can be equally as dangerous as open heart surgery. So when we're thinking about why the BBL is so dangerous, obviously this is surgical and so it has a lot more risk associated, but that area of the body that we're now treating with filler, which we already know can cause clots or vascular occlusion within the body, but we're doing it on a way less serious scale. We're not doing it in a plastic surgeon office. We're not doing it with a team of medical healthcare practitioners that are supporting us if something goes wrong. And so I think we as practitioners need to take a step back and maybe reassess exactly what we're doing. What we offer in terms of hip dips is we offer something called Radiesse, which is a collagen stimulating treatment. And so it's not necessarily filler. It's actually something that's promoting a more natural and more safer option for sure. So yes, it can obviously come with its own risks associated with it as well too. But in my opinion, it's much less riskier than dermal filler in the bum.
Interesting. Wow. Next, all med spas use the same products and machines.
Yeah, this is definitely not true. I think every med spa across, even just within your own neighborhood, will use different things. And everyone has their own preference for sure. I don't think necessarily, between the filler brands or the Botox brands, there's much of a huge difference between them. It has a lot more to do with the practitioner's comfort with all of those injectable devices. When it comes to lasers and machines like that, I think there is a large difference in those different lasers, especially when you're looking at newer ones versus older ones. Some can be a lot stronger than others, but there's also differences in what we're targeting. So when you're having an ablative laser versus a very light resurfacing laser, those two things are achieving very different results.
Okay, perfect. And one last one is bruising or swelling means something went wrong.
Yeah, definitely not true. Bruising and swelling, like I said, we have blood vessels all over our face. If you've ever done when the AGO or the Science Center had that installation where they've had the off the skin body, I don't know if you've ever seen that, but you can see all the little tiny little blood vessels everywhere, all the muscles, all the fat pockets, everything within the body and the face. If you don't get a bruise at any point when you're getting an injectable, whether it's, today or in the next year, you probably just aren't getting it done enough. And so a bruise is something very normal. Swelling is also something very normal as well too. That's why I always tell clients, do not do something important within the first 2 weeks after your injection. You can go about your day, go to work, go to the grocery store, but going to the most important event of your life, your own wedding, you're going to want to give it some time to heal.
Perfect. Okay, that's that for this one. Now, what do you have to say on the future of non-surgical cosmetic procedures?
Yeah, I think we're definitely moving in the right direction in terms of injectable treatments. I feel like, the client the consumer is now a lot more educated than they were, especially when I first started. And, there's injectors out there who have been doing this much longer than I have. But in the last 7 years, I've seen a huge difference in the way that clients come to me and what they're asking for. Sometimes they sit down and they're rambling about all the Botox and filler that they know, And so I feel like there's a great shift that we are promoting a lot of knowledge and, having conversations like this with audiences that maybe aren't my direct target audience. At least I can inform in that sense. Social media is great at doing that, but there's also still a lot of scary things that are out there, right? Just like the DIY injections, influencers who are giving advice, or non-licensed medical professionals. They're not the best to give advice either. So I think there needs to be more responsibility onto the consumer to do their own research. And when I mean research, it's not just about using ChatGPT. It's also about reading real clinical research papers. And if you can't really dive into that or understand what that means, ask someone who can and really take that feedback a lot more into heart before just going into doing injections.
or watch this podcast.
Yes, or watch this podcast, or just call us at Plump It Up, and we'd love to explain everything to you before you even sit on the chair with us.
Perfect. This has been great, Reeya. Thank you so much. One last piece of advice that you would like to give to our listeners.
I think my biggest piece of advice is if your injector is telling you no, that's a good injector. Because if you are not hearing no more than you're hearing yes, then that's a problem, and they're probably just getting you for your money.
Perfect. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Reeya. It was
Thank
a pleasure, and I'm pretty sure there would be a lot of listeners tuning in, and this will give a lot of value.
I hope so. And if anybody would like to contact us, of course, we're at Plump It Up in Etobicoke.
Yeah, and we will obviously have your description,
Awesome.
everything, all the details on the YouTube description.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this platform to share my knowledge.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This episode of the Kapoor podcast was proudly sponsored by Kapoor Law Firm and Kapoor Australia. If you are enjoying the show and want a one-time discount code, head over to our website, thekapoorpodcast.com, and fill out the form to receive your subscriber-only discount code. Whether you're looking for legal expertise or premium Indian ethnic wear, our sponsors have you covered. One more request to all of you, please do subscribe to the show and leave a comment to let us know what you think and how we can improve. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.